The best commentaries from the last video.
I never thought I'd be the guy writing one of these posts, but here we are. My name's Mike, I'm 38, and until recently, I thought I had a pretty solid life. I've been married to my wife, Lauren, for 10 years. She's 36, beautiful, smart, and someone I believed was my soulmate. I have a son, Jason, from my first marriage. He's 20 now, and even though he was only 10 when I married Lauren, she always treated him like her own. She wasn't just my wife, she was his stepmom, his mentor, someone he could trust. At least, that's what I thought. For years, we had what seemed like the perfect blended family. We did family vacations, Sunday dinners, movie nights, you name it. Lauren and Jason always got along well, which I saw as a blessing. Jason had a rough time after his biological mom left, and Lauren stepped up in ways I never expected. I thought she was just being a great stepmom. Looking back now, I feel like an idiot. It started with little things. Small, almost unnoticeable changes. Lauren began spending more one-on-one time with Jason, which at first didn't seem weird. He was in college, and I assumed she was just supporting him through a tough transition. But then it started getting off. They would go to the gym together, just the two of them. Watch late-night movies, just the two of them. Inside jokes. Whispering. And then, she started being distant with me. At first, I brushed it off. Work stress, maybe? Hormones? Something personal? I didn't want to be the insecure husband who got jealous over his wife having a close bond with his son. But then I started noticing real red flags. One night, I walked into the living room and saw them sitting on the couch, way too close. The second I stepped in, they moved apart. It was subtle, but I caught it. I laughed it off, but something in my gut felt wrong. I didn't know it yet, but my entire marriage was about to fall apart. At first, I told myself I was overthinking. I mean, what kind of man suspects his own wife of something like that? But as the days went on, things just didn't sit right with me. The distance between Lauren and me was growing, and I could feel it. She started making excuses to avoid intimacy. Nothing major at first, just the usual. I'm tired. Or, I have a headache. But then it became a pattern. A pattern I couldn't ignore. Jason, on the other hand, was acting different. More confident, more secretive. I started noticing that whenever Lauren and I had a disagreement, Jason would suddenly be extra nice to her. Bringing her coffee, helping her around the house, even making her laugh when she was upset. At first, I chalked it up to him trying to be supportive, but something about it felt unnatural. Like he was stepping into a role he had no business filling. Then came the gym incident. One day, I decided to swing by the gym they always went to. I told Lauren I had a work meeting, but instead, I parked across the street and watched. I knew it was crazy, but I needed to see for myself. At first, everything seemed normal. They walked in together, laughing about something. But then I saw it. Jason placed his hand on the small of her back as they walked in. It wasn't some casual gesture, it was intimate. I felt a cold wave rush over me. I tried to shake it off. Maybe I was reading too much into it. Maybe I was just paranoid. But then, later that night, I overheard something that made my stomach drop. I had gone to bed early, but I woke up thirsty. As I walked past the living room, I heard them whispering. Jason's voice, low and serious. You know he's gonna figure it out eventually. Silence. Then Lauren's voice, softer. Not if we're careful. I felt my heart stop. My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to barge in right then and there, demand an explanation, but I couldn't move. I just stood there in the dark hallway, frozen, listening to my wife and my son have a conversation that I wasn't supposed to hear. And that was the moment I knew something was very, very wrong. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying that conversation over and over again in my head. Not if we're careful. What the hell was that supposed to mean? By morning, my entire perception of my marriage had shifted. I felt like a fool. Like I had been blind this entire time. But I still didn't have proof. I had suspicions, gut feelings, and one shady conversation, but no hard evidence. So, I did what any man in my position would do. I started paying closer attention. Lauren and Jason weren't stupid. They weren't openly affectionate or obvious. But when you're looking for something, you start noticing the cracks. Like how Jason's car was suddenly parked in our driveway more often than usual, even on nights when he was supposed to be out with friends. Like how Lauren's phone, which she used to leave lying around, was suddenly always face down or in her pocket. Like how they both would suddenly go quiet when I walked into the room, then laugh it off like it was nothing. The worst part? I couldn't confront them. Not yet. If I was wrong, I'd be accusing my wife and my own son of something unforgivable. But if I was right, I needed to be sure. So, I decided to set a trap. One evening, I told Lauren I had a late work meeting. She barely looked up from her phone. "Okay, have a good night," she said casually. No questions. No concern. I pretended to leave, got in my car, and drove a few blocks away. Then I parked and waited. An hour passed. Nothing. Then I saw Jason's car pull up. My heart pounded in my chest. I watched as he walked up to the front door, didn't even knock, just let himself in like he lived there. I clenched the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I gave it 10 minutes, then I got out of my car and walked back to the house. I don't know what I expected to find. But the moment I opened that front door and heard the sound of hurried footsteps upstairs, like someone had just been caught, I knew. I knew my life was about to fall apart. I stood in the doorway, listening. My heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. Upstairs, footsteps shuffled, followed by a door creaking shut. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. This was it. This was the moment I found out if I was crazy or if my entire life was a lie. I walked up the stairs slowly, every step feeling heavier than the last. The hallway was dark, but I could see the faint glow of light seeping out from under our bedroom door. Our bedroom. I reached for the handle, hesitated for just a second, then pushed it open. Lauren was sitting on the bed, fully clothed, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. She looked up at me with a casual smile. "Hey, you're home early." Too casual. Too calm. I glanced around. No sign of Jason. But I wasn't stupid. I stepped inside and turned to the closet door. Closed. My pulse spiked. "Who else is here?" I asked, my voice tight. Lauren frowned. "What?" "No one." I walked to the closet and yanked the door open. Empty. I let out a shaky breath, but something still wasn't right. I turned back to Lauren, watching her closely. Her hands were gripping her phone a little too tight. Her smile was a little too forced. Then I saw it. A pair of men's sneakers peeking out from under the bed. Jason's sneakers. A cold wave of realization hit me. I stared at them, then slowly lifted my gaze back to Lauren. She must have seen the change in my expression because her face went pale. "Mike!" she started, but I was already reaching down. I grabbed Jason by the ankle and yanked him out from under the bed. The look on his face when he saw me, pure panic. Lauren jumped up, hands raised like she could somehow stop what was about to happen. "Mike, please, it's not what it looks like." I let out a hollow laugh. "Really? Because it looks like my wife and my son are sneaking around behind my back." Jason scrambled to his feet, looking everywhere except at me. "Look, man, Don't," I snapped. "Don't say a damn word." The room was dead silent. None of them had an excuse. None of them even tried. I turned to Lauren. "How long?" She didn't answer. I stepped closer, my voice dangerously low. "How long?" She swallowed hard, looking down. "A few months." I felt something inside me crack. A few months. All those times I thought I was being paranoid. All those nights I blamed myself for overthinking. And the whole time, they were doing this behind my back. I clenched my jaw, breathing hard. "Get out!" I said finally, my voice shaking with rage. Lauren's eyes widened. Mike, let's talk. Get out. Jason didn't argue. He bolted out of the room like a coward. But Lauren hesitated. I love you, she whispered. It was a mistake. I laughed bitterly. You don't destroy a marriage over a mistake, Lauren. She opened her mouth to say something else, but I didn't care anymore. I turned my back on her and walked out. Because in that moment I knew this wasn't just the end of my marriage. It was the end of the life I thought I had. I don't remember much of what happened right after. Everything felt like a blur. I walked out of that bedroom, out of that house, and just drove. I didn't know where I was going, I just needed to be anywhere but there. At some point, I pulled into an empty parking lot, shut off the engine, and just sat there in silence. My mind was racing, but my body felt numb. Lauren. My wife. The woman I trusted. Jason. My son. My own blood. I kept replaying everything in my head. Every moment that now made sense. Every little sign I ignored. And now, I had my answer. It was real. It was happening. And I had been too blind to see it. I checked my phone, 10 missed calls from Lauren. A few from Jason. I didn't answer. I didn't want to hear their excuses. What could they possibly say? Sorry, my bad. It didn't mean anything. It meant enough for them to sneak around for months. It meant enough for them to betray me in my own house. I spent that night in a cheap motel. I couldn't go home. Not yet. The next morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to be the guy who sat around crying over this. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of thinking they broke me. No. If they wanted to destroy my life, I was going to make damn sure they paid for it. I went back to the house that afternoon, walking in like I owned the place, because I did. Lauren was sitting on the couch, eyes red and puffy. She jumped up the second she saw me. Mike, please, we need to talk. I ignored her and went straight upstairs. Packed a bag, grabbed the essentials. I was leaving, but not before making a few things clear. When I came back down, she was standing there, wringing her hands like she was the victim in all this. I love you, she whispered. It was a mistake. I let out a cold laugh. A mistake? No, forgetting to pick up milk at the store is a mistake. This was a choice. Over and over again. She flinched, but I didn't care. I'm filing for divorce, I said bluntly. You can keep the house, for now. But trust me, this isn't over. Her face crumbled. Mike, please. I held up a hand, cutting her off. Save it. Whatever excuse you're about to give me? I don't care. And with that I walked out. Because the next step was making sure the whole world knew exactly what kind of person she really was. I wasn't the type of guy to go scorched earth over a breakup. But this wasn't just a breakup. This was betrayal on a level I never thought possible. And if Lauren and Jason thought they were going to walk away from this without consequences, they were dead wrong. The first thing I did was call a lawyer. A damn good one. I wasn't about to let Lauren get away with anything in the divorce. She could keep the house for now, but I was going to make sure she regretted ever setting foot in it with my son behind my back. The second thing I did? I told everyone. I started with my family. My parents, my siblings, everyone who ever looked at Lauren like she was a saint. That illusion shattered real quick. My mom was ready to go to war. My dad, let's just say he had some choice words about Jason that I won't repeat here. Then I let the news spread to our mutual friends. Lauren had always been the type to care about her reputation. She played the role of the perfect wife, the caring stepmom, the woman who had it all together. Well, not anymore. Word got around fast. People started pulling away from her. The invites stopped. The texts dried up. Even some of her closest friends didn't want to be associated with her. No one wants to be around someone who cheats on their husband, with his own son. And Jason? Let's just say his life didn't stay the same either. I called his biological mom, my ex-wife. Told her everything. She was furious. Turns out, Jason had been lying to her about a lot of things, including how often he was staying at my place. She cut him off financially, kicked him out of her house, and basically left him to figure things out on his own. I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered the sneakers under my bed. The whispers. The lies. I didn't feel bad anymore. Lauren tried reaching out a few times. Calls, texts, emails. The whole "I made a mistake, I love you, please forgive me" routine. I blocked her. Because at the end of the day, this wasn't about love. This was about respect. And the moment she made the choice to betray me, she lost every ounce of it. I wasn't just moving on. I was making damn sure she'd never forget what she lost. Lauren and Jason thought they could play their little game and walk away unscathed. Turns out, life doesn't work that way. I stayed quiet for a while, let the truth sink into the people around us. And man, did it hit hard. Lauren's life started unraveling almost immediately. She lost more than just friends, she lost her job. She worked in PR, and guess what? Sleeping with your stepson doesn't exactly scream trustworthy brand representative. Someone from our social circle must have let her boss know, because within a week she was out. She tried to play the victim, of course. "Mike is spreading lies about me," she whined to anyone who'd listen. But no one was buying it. Even people who weren't close to me could do the math. Meanwhile, Jason wasn't doing much better. With his mom cutting him off, he had nowhere to go. He tried moving in with Lauren, but guess what? She couldn't afford the house on her own anymore. I had made sure of that. See, when I met with my lawyer, I played it smart. Instead of trying to kick her out immediately, I let her drown in the mortgage. The house was in both our names, and since I had officially moved out, she was responsible for payments. She thought I'd keep covering my share. She was wrong. Within 2 months, she was behind on payments. The bank started calling. She panicked, tried to sell the house, but surprise, no one wanted to buy a home that came with a scandal attached to it. So, she did the only thing left. She called me. "Mike, please, can we talk?" she begged over voicemail. "I can't do this alone. I need your help." I laughed. I actually laughed. The audacity. She needed my help? After everything? I didn't call her back. Instead, I let her rot in the mess she created. Jason tried reaching out, too. A weak, half-assed apology about how he didn't mean to hurt me. Like he just tripped and fell into my wife's bed by accident. I didn't respond. Because the truth is, I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. Done with the drama, the lies, the betrayal. I had won. And they? They had to live with what they did. I always thought revenge would feel satisfying, like some cinematic moment where I walk away while everything burns behind me. But the reality? It was quieter. Slower. And honestly, way more enjoyable. Lauren and Jason weren't just struggling, they were sinking. After ignoring her calls for weeks, I finally got curious and checked in on her situation. Turns out, losing everything had done a number on her. She was staying with a friend in a tiny apartment, barely scraping by. The house? She lost it. Foreclosed. Everything she built with me was gone. Jason wasn't doing much better. With no money and nowhere stable to live, he was couch surfing, bouncing between friends' places. His bright, confident, golden boy energy? Completely gone. I heard through the grapevine that their little relationship didn't last long either. Shocker. Apparently, once the excitement of sneaking around was gone, they started fighting. Reality hit them both hard. Jason wanted to party, live his life. Lauren? She was a 36-year-old woman who had just torched her entire future. Not exactly a match made in heaven. One night, I got a text from an unknown number. I messed up. "Can we talk?" It took me a second to realize it was Lauren. I stared at the screen, debating. Then I deleted the message. Because the thing is, she was right. She did mess up. And I had moved on. It had been months since I walked away from that disaster, and life was finally starting to feel normal again. Peaceful. No more lies, no more gut-wrenching suspicion, just me, living my life on my own terms. But Lauren? She wasn't done yet. One evening, I was out with some friends when I got another text. This time, from a number I actually had saved. Jason. Can we meet? I need to talk. I stared at it for a while, debating whether to respond. A part of me was curious. The other part? It just didn't care anymore. But in the end I agreed. Not because I wanted some heartfelt reunion, but because I wanted to see just how far he had fallen. We met at a small coffee shop the next day. When I walked in, I barely recognized him. The confident, cocky kid I had raised? Gone. He looked exhausted, like life had chewed him up and spit him out. He didn't waste time. I messed up, he admitted, his voice hollow. I know I did. I just nodded, waiting. He hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck. She ruined my life, man. I don't know what I thought. I guess I thought she cared about me. But after everything fell apart, she turned cold. Like I was nothing to her. I almost laughed. What did he expect? He ran a hand through his hair. I lost everything. My mom won't talk to me. My friends think I'm disgusting. And Lauren? She moved on. She found some new guy, some older dude with money. She doesn't even answer my texts anymore. I took a sip of my coffee unfazed. Sounds like karma. Jason flinched. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I needed you to hear it. For the first time, I actually looked at him, not as the kid I raised, but as the man who made his own choices. You burned that bridge, Jason, I said calmly. And now you're standing in the ashes, wondering why you're alone. He swallowed hard, staring down at the table. He looked like he wanted to argue, to beg for some kind of forgiveness. But I had nothing left to give. So I stood up, threw a few bucks on the table for my coffee, and walked out. Because that was the last time I was ever going to let him be a part of my life. Walking out of that coffee shop, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. Jason's apology didn't change anything. It didn't undo the betrayal, didn't erase the months of lies. But seeing him like that, lost, broken, realizing that his choices had real consequences? That was enough for me. I didn't need revenge anymore. Life had already taken care of that for me. Lauren? Last I heard, she was still bouncing from guy to guy, looking for another man to save her. She never found one who stuck around. Turns out, most men don't want a woman with that kind of baggage. Jason? He disappeared from my world after that day. Maybe he picked up the pieces, maybe he didn't. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. As for me? I moved forward. I got my own place, focused on my career, reconnected with friends I had lost touch with. I even started dating again, not because I needed someone, but because I finally felt like myself again. And one night, sitting on my new balcony, looking out at the city, I realized something. I had won. Not because I got revenge. Not because they suffered. But because I survived. Because I walked through the fire, through the worst kind of betrayal, and came out the other side stronger. They were just a chapter in my life. A painful one, sure. But just a chapter. And I was already writing a better one.